The corridors of power in South Africa are shaking tonight as Minister Peter Groenewald detonates a political bombshell that has the entire African National Congress exploding in a fury of rage and panic. For viewers just joining us, this is a story that goes straight to the heart of power, money, and justice in a nation still fighting for its soul. For years, South Africa's prisons weren't just for rehabilitation. They were a booming business. Private companies were handed lucrative contracts to run services inside the walls, from bakeries that produce thousands of loaves a day to massive farms and workshops. The official story was always about teaching inmates valuable skills, but behind closed doors, a very different, far more sinister game was being played. And then one man decided he'd seen enough. Peter Groenewald, the Minister of Correctional Services, a figure known for his blunt, no-nonsense approach, walked into this political minefield and made a single, monumental decision. He shut it all down. Every single outsourced contract, every deal, every flow of cash from the state to private hands, in one swift, breathtaking move, he pulled the plug on a system that has been feeding off the South African taxpayer for decades. To understand the sheer magnitude of this, you have to understand what these operations were. We're not talking about small community projects. This was big business. A single prison bakery, like the one officially opened with such pride, could produce nearly 4,000 loaves of bread every single day. That's bread that was then sold. Farms produced food, workshops manufactured goods, all under the guise of rehabilitation, but all generating massive, almost unimaginable revenue streams. The whispers have always been there, swirling in the political shadows. Whispers that these contracts weren't awarded to the most capable companies, but to the most connected individuals. Whispers that powerful ANC ministers, members of parliament, and their friends and families were the real beneficiaries of this captive market. It was a perfect closed-loop system. The state paid the companies delivered the services, and a portion of that money allegedly found its way back into the pockets of the powerful. What led to this point? A country on its knees. A national treasury being squeezed dry by corruption and mismanagement. Billions of rands meant for public services have vanished into thin air over the years, and the Department of Correctional Services was not immune. It faced crippling budget cuts, over 11 billion rand slashed in just 5 years, directly impacting security, infrastructure, and the very rehabilitation programs these contracts were supposed to support. So when Minister Groenewald looked at the books, he saw a simple, glaring truth. Why are we paying middlemen exorbitant fees for work that our own department, our own inmates, can do? Why are we outsourcing the baking of bread when we have ovens and people right here? This wasn't just about saving money, it was about a fundamental principle of self-sufficiency. He argued that the department must become internally reliant, that the skills taught must be real and tangible, and that every rand saved is a rand that can be poured back into actual rehabilitation, into feeding inmates properly, into maintaining the crumbling facilities that house them. But this logic, as sound as it may seem to the average person, was a direct threat to a deeply entrenched ecosystem of graft. The reaction from within the ANC was not just disagreement, it was volcanic. Senior figures, those with long political careers and deep networks, erupted. They called the move reckless. They claimed it would cost jobs on the outside. They argued it would destroy successful rehabilitation programs and leave inmates with nothing to do, potentially sparking unrest within the prison walls themselves. But one must ask, whose jobs were they truly worried about? The workers or the contractors? The sheer ferocity of the pushback tells its own story. When a move meant to save the taxpayer money and curb corruption is met with such visceral opposition from the political elite, it begs the question, what are they so afraid of losing? This is where the story stops being about policy and starts being about people. Think about the ordinary South African taxpayer, already burdened by a high cost of living, by load shedding, by service delivery failures. Their money, their taxes, were being funneled into a system that may have been enriching the very politicians they elected. Think about the inmates, caught in the middle of this political firestorm. For them, this work wasn't about profit margins. It was about hope. It was a chance to learn a trade, to break the monotonous and destructive cycle of prison life, to have something to put on a resume upon release. The genuine fear is that in the chaotic transition, these programs will falter, and that the most vulnerable people in this equation will be the ones who ultimately pay the price for the sins of the powerful. Could you see this coming? Was there writing on the wall for a system so bloated with alleged corruption that it was only a matter of time before it collapsed under its own weight? The public reaction has been a mixture of fierce support for Groenewald's boldness and deep-seated cynicism. Many citizens are applauding a minister finally taking a stand, finally wielding the axe against the gnarled roots of state capture. They see him as a rare figure of action in a sea of political talk. Others are weary, having seen too many scandals come and go with no real change, believing that this system will simply find another way to survive, that the networks are too deep, too powerful, to be undone by a single decision. They ask, is this just political theater, or is it the beginning of genuine accountability? The consequences of this decision will ripple through South Africa for years to come. If Minister Groenewald succeeds, he will have set a powerful precedent. He will have shown that it is possible to dismantle these networks of patronage, to reclaim state functions from private interests, and to redirect funds to where they are most needed. It could embolden other departments to follow suit, triggering a much broader purge of corruption. But if he fails, if the political pressure becomes too great, if the system fights back and wins, it will be a devastating blow. What would you do if this happened in your community? If you discovered that your local government was funneling money through shady contracts to the elite, would you support a minister who shut it all down overnight, despite the risks? The answer to that question lies at the very core of our relationship with power and justice. The story is still unfolding, the final chapter has not been written, and every citizen has a role to play in demanding accountability and transparency. This is a reminder that the fight for a better South Africa is fought in every department, in every decision, and in every vote. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel angry or hopeful or thoughtful, then share that feeling. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think about Minister Groenewald's bold move. Do you stand with him? Like this video if you believe in holding power to account, and subscribe to this channel for more real, in-depth stories that matter, stories that go beyond the headlines and into the heart of the issues that shape our world. The conversation doesn't end here, it's just beginning.